Hey everybody, this is Andrew Benjamin. We are RIZIN Podcast. We got returning guests of us, and for the seems like a long time because every fighter that we interviewed in the past has lost their fights whenever we interviewed them. But finally get to do a post-fight interview with a winner, Jose Shorty Torres, who just beat Makoto Shinryu at RIZIN 49 Decade. Congratulations once again on your win, Shorty. You must be fucking happy.
Oh, dude, I'm ecstatic. It's funny because talking to the Ryzen matchmaker before the fight, I go, man, just want to let you know because he's like, hey, we love exciting fights, this, that. And I go, I have a really bad tendency of making the fights way closer than they should be. And then after the fight, I go, dude, I won by a split decision. Didn't I call this? I make the fights way closer than they should be, and it was obviously as tight as it possibly could be. But it was a fun one. Dude, Makoto Shinryu, he's a warrior. And I don't mean to have accidentally belittled him because going into the fight, I had a game plan. Let me relax first round, let me just do whatever, survive. And then second and third round, really just walk forward and walk him down, be a little tank. And I did. But the second round, dude, I cut him twice. I, excuse me, I landed a lot of body shots. Um, I hit him with good shots. And he just, after the second round, I'm like, oh, he's done. I should be able to finish this in the third round. And third round, he starts shooting. He starts doing, leg lock attempts. It's kind of like last ditch efforts, but he just never gave up. And I'm like, yo, this kid's trying. He's not stopping, and it's awesome. I wish I would have maybe put more respect on his name, but he maybe put more respect on his name after that.
So yeah, I want to talk a little more detail about the fight eventually. But one thing I want to ask is, and I always ask MMA fighters this, the walk. We were all nervous making your walk down the uh, Saitama, I don't know, walkway or whatever. Was that the hardest part of the fight?
Excuse me, I'm a little sick back at home, but I'm like sweating because how sick I am. Um, excuse me, real quick. Chicago, the flu's going around everywhere, so I'm a little beat
All
up.
good.
But with that being said, dude, the walkout was epic. It was one of the craziest things that you could ever, be a part of because Ryzen plans it, but we don't know anything until we walk out. So all I know is they go, hey, stand behind this, it's gonna go up, and then you walk out, do your walkout. Me, I'm like, right here, okay, cool. Huh. I'm like, all right, cool, let's, just wait. And then I'm waiting to walk out, and the stage never goes up. Then finally the monitor walks up and I see the crowd, I see the packed arena, the different levels. But then earlier I saw, I guess apparently during the boxing portion, somebody fell during the walkout because there's so much smoke where the stairs are and like the ramp. So in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so epic. My, Japanese theme song is coming out. I'm having a great time. And I'm like, oh dude, don't fall. Oh my gosh, just don't fall. And I'm walking, walking, walking. And there's even a point to where there's so much smoke that I couldn't even see my feet. I'm like, oh my gosh, is there steps? Are there stairs? Oh my God, just walk, look up, and be cool. It reminds me of like high school prom, like don't mess up, everything's gonna be fine type of thing. And but with my team, myself, Lazy Boy and Mike, we love the hype. We love it felt like a WWE walkout. It felt like I was walking around and walking out for WrestleMania and I was Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, even though I was in the middle of the card, it made me feel like I was the main event. Like, everyone was there to see me. And everyone a part of the card, from the very first fight to the last, had that same experience. And it just got better and better as the show went on. So for me, when I got out there, I'm a person that doesn't really have jitters when I get to the fight. But when I opened it up, it's just like it gets me that much more excited to get inside the ring. And it was a really long walk, but easily, easily, easily by far the best walkout I've ever done, I've ever seen, and possibly maybe at least right now that I will ever have. It was one of those that again you just you don't know on the if you're on the west side of the world. Like if you're on the west side of the world, this is all new to you. You come to the east side, you're like, oh, dude, this is an event. Like there's fireworks. They're telling you to cover your ears. They're doing all these things. They made walkouts for you. Like if you were a WWE star, um, it was a phenomenal thing, dude. Like I can't wait, and I hope I get to do it again.
So I got the fight up on RIZIN.TV, which everybody can watch the replay on. And just so first thing I want to ask is round one. Uh, he took you down pretty fast in the maybe the first looks like 2 minutes. Were you surprised at how fast or I don't know, did he catch you off guard with that sweep?
Not really that. See, sadly, my style, I know things are gonna happen. Like I've been cut, I've been taken down, I've been slammed, I've been every worst thing possible for the most part. And hopefully it doesn't get any worse, knock on wood. But I knew, immediately I was gonna shoot. Obviously, I sprawled and we got into kind of like an over under position, 50 position on the feet. And I love, little sweeps. But there was no movement. I'm really good with momentum, but I'm like, he's not gonna move. I'm kind of bored. All right, well, let's create some momentum. Let me try to go for a sweep on this side. And he went for, an outside reap, which coincidentally is usually a really good counter to sweeps. And I was like, oh, damn, and I fell. I couldn't counter. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I wasn't worried about getting taken down, especially in the first round. He's a wrestler, he's a grappler. That's what he wanted to do. He was going to force the fight down to the ground no matter what. That's his fighting style. Plus, my job in my head was to just make him work in the first round. So hopefully that second round and I told him after the fight, had this game plan coming in. That I just wanted him to work the first round because he's so explosive in number one that by the time round two comes, he's a very, very different fighter. You can tell he's fatigued. You can tell his fighting style's changed. He doesn't have that motivation as much anymore. So I was like, okay, cool. Like he took me down, but then before the match, I'm like, okay, cool, fighting inside of a ring. Um, okay, I can't put my feet in certain areas. I don't really use the cage too much. I'll be fine. But then we got down to the ground inside the fight. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm on the corner of a ring. Um, wait, I can't put my feet on the ropes. I can push off real quick, but I can't keep them there because there's always somebody there slapping your feet off of the ropes or the corner, panels. So it's like, okay, there's not really anything to work off of. I can't grab a rope and try to pull myself up. It's illegal. Okay, cool. The only thing I can do since I'm on a corner and even jujitsu wise is turn inside towards the knees, try to shrimp out and try to get underhook or base up. The only problem is because of rise and rules, you can knee a grounded opponent to the head. So I'm like, wait, if I put this arm lower to go under, my head is completely susceptible to taking a knee to the head. So I can't do that. I need to explode and I technically got up incorrectly. I gave up my back and had to force my way up and that's why I inevitably took my back. But there was no time, especially in the first round, but in any of that fight that I was ever worried that he was gonna tap me out.
Hmm.
Dude, I train with some of the best. Like I'm pretty good, at least defensively, jiu-jitsu wise, and I'm like I I do a lot of dumb stuff that somehow I'm really good at surviving. I'm like that one lucky guy in Call of Duty that will start the game and just will somehow run through the middle with no setup, no game plan. I'll end up on the other side without getting shot. Like it's just
Hmm.
one of those things. So for me in the fight, I was never worried that he was going to be a danger. And even in the fight, when he did hit me, I'm so used to fighting at bantamweight that I'm a little tank at flyweight. So he hit me with clean punches a couple times. And one of them a really nice uppercut. That even in the fight, you see me go like nice, like it was perfectly fine, and I never felt scared or in danger in the fight.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I just saw the part where he took your back, where you took where he had you on mount. You gave your back. You stood up, and then he had this no, it was like a triangle. He had this like half triangle on your leg, like half guard triangle on your leg. I
Yeah.
haven't seen that really before. I don't, or at
Well,
least.
it's technically a lockdown, but
Mm,
it's usually from half guard. But if you're the guy on top, you usually lock someone down by keeping them in that position. It's kind of like it's like a key lock with your legs, and
mm,
it's just to hold someone. And you can do the same thing if you're on the bottom. you can do that same position and you just hold someone in that position. It's more of a temporary thing. It's not a submission attempt for the most part, at least for the higher level belts. And it's just to, in a sense, kind of stall a little bit and then see where things go from there. Because some
Hmm.
people panic when they're stuck and they move. Me, I'm just like, oh, damn it, that's a good lockdown. I've never had someone ever do that to me on the feet. So it completely stopped my movement on the hand, on the legs. I was fine, but then he had to lock down that one leg, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like I can't create any space. This is actually really into my head. I'm just like, oh, this is actually really impressive. Like I need to start doing this too. But I don't know if you see in the fight, there's not like frustration in my face, but it's just more of like boredom. Like, and
Hmm.
again, it's not being disrespectful, but I'm a person that loves action. I love momentum. I like things to keep on going, whether I'm losing or winning. It's a fact of I just like action, especially Japan in a ring, the Saitama Super Arena. I want to pace. And when he took my back, he's just kind of waiting and trying to not force submissions, but be safe as possible and see if it looks good. So for me, I was kind of like, all right, get off me. And then now I'm able to fling him off. So most of the time in certain positions, I'm kind of like waiting to see what he does. And then nothing ever happens. And I'm like, okay, it's my time to just get out and out of there. It didn't matter if it was in the first round or the second or third round. You just see me always trying to move after a certain period of time. I'm just kind of like, no. All right, let's, do my move and get out. And I was able to get out every time. And that's, again, it's not a disrespectful thing, but I never felt in danger. I felt very, very comfortable. No matter how the fight went, I did 100% believe I was going to win. I just sadly made it a lot closer than it should have been.
Hmm. In the second round, I want to please let me know if I'm correct in thinking this, but I feel like you can just tell that like, okay, my striking is so much better than this guy, so I'm just gonna have this guy running around the corners. I'm gonna close distance on him. His strikes aren't hurting me. Is that what you're going through, or your game plan in the
Um,
second round is?
I I mean, I know I was gonna piece him up. He moved a little more than I expected, so I wasn't able to throw combinations. But I did throw a lot of body kicks. I threw a lot of body shots on my right side. And I landed a couple hooks, and he took every shot. I mean, I know I think I cut him once here and maybe made his nose bleed. But the fact was he was taking shots, especially to the body, when I knew he was already pretty tired from the first round. So I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. Like I'm just walking forward, like it's taking, making him move. He had no choice but to like, I wouldn't say run from me, but just try his best to stay away from me and kind of create a little bit of breathing room for himself to create a good shot or create a good takedown attempt. Um, so for me, I was just like, all right, cool. Like I'm walking forward. Plus, he's moving back. So even when he did land strikes, he doesn't have his full power, behind it. Um, but into that third round he caught me off guard. I honestly thought he was going to be dead on me. I thought he was going to die out and be a very, very different fighter. But you can tell in his head, he's like 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. I just have to push the pace. And if I feel like I'm losing, which I believe at that point he thought he was, just because of the damage that occurred in the second round. Screw it. I need to go for knee bars. I need to go for heel hooks. I need to go for something big because if not, I'm going to lose this fight. But sadly, I really do believe that's what lost him the fight as well.
Hmm. Now I see. I'm up to where you have his back, and it looks like you almost have that rear naked choking, but you just where you because you're against the corner. Was it very hard to cinch in? He's also turning into you. It looks like.
It's crazy because I'm usually pretty good or solid at submissions, but every single submission attempt I had, and it honestly, this is like brownie points for him. Kudos to him is he ended up somehow just grabbing a leg with his legs in certain positions to just keep me from being able to finish certain things. Like whether it was the arm triangle the third round, whether it was the guillotine, whether it was my Kimura attempt, which for me, my Kimura attempt is my best thing. Um, and there was one more. I believe there was a rear naked choke attempt. I'm not too sure, but there was always an angle wrong. There was always something like the guillotine. One of my legs are stuck, so I can't even lift my knee out of there to create a better position. And the Kimura, my far leg is stuck in the outside because he sit on it, so I couldn't even create the space and torque to turn with the Kimura. And I'm just like, oh, that's why I couldn't get it. You son of a bitch! Like, well done. And it's literally it shows his experience even at 24 of going I might not be able to get out of this position but you are not going to finish me. I'm going to do just enough to survive. But it was a very smart thing because it was literally the one little thing I needed that I just couldn't get out. And that's why I couldn't finish him in the fight.
Hmm. Now I'm up to the part with the I get did the leg lock attempts catch you off guard almost like oh my like I feel like going for it at this point would be almost like the surprise is would catch you more off guard than the actual submission attempt at that, if you understand what I'm saying. Were you
It
surprised that
was
he just dove like so just so almost brazenly for your leg?
Um, a little bit, but it's also the fact for two things. One, he's young. Like I expected the unexpected from him, especially in the first round. I know he always likes to start off big, with jumping knees and flying kicks and Superman punches, and he's a like in his mind, he's still a kid. He's that youthful recklessness, but in a good way because it can work in his favor most of the time. Because as now we're sadly adults, we start to go, man, that's probably a bad idea. I'm kind of too scared to do this, but he doesn't care. In that third round, I do believe in his head that he's like, oh man, now this kid or this guy has my back. I'm losing. I need to go for big time submissions, and I win, or so far I'm winning the fight on the ground. So how can I bring this down on the ground when he has my back on the feet? Let me just go for a knee bar. Worst comes to worst, the submission works. And worst comes to worst, if it doesn't, hopefully he does something dumb in the scramble where I'm still able to land on top. It just so happened that sadly I've torn my MCL before twice in one of my knees and have had knee problems for years. So I'm used to people trying to go for heel hooks, knee bars, all that stuff. So immediately when he went down, I was like, okay, cool. I know how to defend it. Let me just stay calm, keep the pressure, land a couple strikes if I can. And once I get out, just keep the pace and just make sure I stay on top. And for the majority of that third round, I did.
Hmm. And so at the end, were you confident that you had won?
I was a lot more confident that I had won than I probably should have been. I was like, oh, cool. In my head, I was like, dude, I dominated that second round. I'm not worried. Like I beat him up. But then rewatching the fight, I'm like, oh wow, he landed a couple shots on me in the second round. I didn't notice how many more shots he landed, and then I didn't notice how close the fight was going into that third round. I knew for sure it was 1-1. I know they don't do round by round, but when it came to damage is usually what Ryzen likes to score as a fight as a whole. I was like, okay, I'm winning the fight. All I have to do is stay on top and keep the pressure. But then he started shooting, he started going for knee bars, or started going for different things. Those are submission attempts. That's why even, towards the end, I was like, well, I have to go for my submission attempts as well. Even if they don't work, as long as I stay on top or have him in a vulnerable position, I'm winning points. And towards the end, I was like, okay, cool, I won. But then when it went to split, I was like, oh, this might suck because my last two fights before this I lost, and my last one I thought I won unanimously, very easily. But then they didn't even read the scorecard; they just gave it to my opponent, and I'm like, oh, oh no. And then when I heard the split, I was like, oh no, I'm in Japan, and I'm not Japanese, So me, I do believe the right scorecard was red, and that I won, but. I talked to Shinryu after. I'm like, dude, you're good for 24. Like, don't be discouraged. You took a bet, you took a chance. Obviously, it didn't work, but you showed how good you are at 24 years old. There's no reason to be down on yourself. Um, he asked for questions about like what he thinks he should do. Hopefully, he says he wants to fight me again in the Grand Prix tournament. I would love to fight him. And I was like, dude, you're fine. You're 24 years old. I'm 32. I'm in my prime and you took me to a split decision. Like, that's how good you are now. Just imagine by the time you reach my age, if you keep everything going the way you are, especially competing against the best, like he's gone against myself, he's gone against, you know, um, KOG and so many more. Like, and the guy who keeps on losing to KOG but beating him and everyone else, I can't remember the guy's name, but um, with that being said, he's a good fighter, and I'm excited to see how much he grows from there. And hopefully, one day I get to fight him again in the Grand Prix, but this time I'm gonna have a lot more respect for him.
Hmm. Um, so I did watch your post fight interview. One of the things that you said that I think it was your post fight interview. You said that what you enjoyed most about Ryzen, or one of the things, was flying first class,
Oh, I flew business class, but
business class.
but I just want to say I kind of bit myself in the ass because I didn't know this. So this is the funny thing. I'm probably getting in trouble saying this. Was I'm a brave fighter. And Ryzen was like, you know what? We will meet your contractual obligations to Brave and just have everything there, but have you fight for Ryzen. It's like, cool. I'm getting the same pay. I'm getting the same everything for the most part. All the benefits that I get for Brave, I get the same benefits for Ryzen. Now, my whole life, I've flown economy. And going to the Middle East, or even my last flight to Mauritius, was 32 hours. Dude, that sucked. But it was economy in three different flights. Never flown anything else but economy. And when I got the tickets, they're like, "Oh, you're in your business premium, stuff like that." And I'm like, "Yo, I got these recliners. This is awesome." I'm like, I'm so happy because now I'm also doing this weight cut and go to Japan. So I get to sleep, all that stuff. I'm like, man, Verizon really takes care of their fighters. They put my two coaches in economy and myself in business. Um, they must fly all their guys business class. Like that's my mindset. So when I said in that post-fight speech, I was like, oh yeah, man, they take care of their fighters. Yeah, man, I've never flown business class in my life. And the matchmaker looks at me, he's like, I'm like, why is he looking at me like that? And then after he goes, wait, you've never flown business class before? I was like, uh, no, why? It's my first time. He goes, Brave told me you fly business class every single fight. I was like, good for you, Brave. Good for you. But I was like, I think I just kind of fucked this up. But I just want to say, no take backs, no take backs. If I do another fight, it has to be business class. Sorry, sorry. So I think I bit myself in the ass. But regardless, it was awesome.
I think regardless, no shade to Brave,
Oh
for
yeah,
whatever.
no. They wanted to take care of me, and I appreciate it.
I guess the other thing I gotta ask you is how's it feel, snapping that losing streak? I think was it 2 or 3 fight losing streak at this point?
No, it was my first ever out of my, let's see, 15 years of fighting, at least in MMA, that I've lost two in a row. I've never lost two in a row, whether it was in kickboxing, Muay Thai, all that stuff. Um, and again, for me, the camp I had before this was at the time the best camp of my life, and I had a good fight. It was a trilogy fight, and man, the hard thing about this fight, and I can have a bunch of shade towards the commission that was in Mauritius because it was a very brand new, I believe, more volunteer esque type commission because it was a new country joining MMA. But when you're a new country joining the sport, you follow more, you know more about striking. You don't know about wrestling, the stuff on the west side of the world. And against my opponent, I had no choice but to wrestle him, even though it's not my style of fighting. I had to grapple him, and I think I dominated the grappling in 4 rounds compared to the one round that I know for sure he won. Then after the fight, they didn't even read the scorecard. They were just like, and in my head, I won 4-1. My coaches are saying, "Hey, you won 4-1," but worse is worse. It's like, "Hey, I won 3-2," but no matter what, I won. I'm not worried. I dominated the fight. I'm good. And then after the fight, they're like, "Unanimous decision, this guy," and I'm like, "Did I did I just get fucked here?" I feel like, and my team was curious. Like even the promotion was calling me and saying, "Hey, man, we believe you won that fight. It is what it is. We can't turn anything back, but that's part of the process." And I'm like, "Well, fuck. Like I had a bad performance the one before. This one I had a great performance. It might have not been the most exciting fight because of a lot of wrestling, but I know I won, and then I lose." Leading up to this camp, I had to make it a much better camp. And I did. I was lean, I was ripped. And then I get to Ryzen, and then by the end of it, it goes to a split decision. And immediately I'm like, oh no, it's gonna happen again. But again, it worked in my favor, and it's nice to finally, break off that losing streak. I've also been waiting 7 months since my last loss. So I was supposed to fight in August when my fight was in May. Then I was supposed to fight in September. Then I was supposed to fight December 13th. And then out of nowhere, I'm fighting for New Year's Eve. So there's a lot of mental struggle of you're gonna fight, you're gonna fight, you're gonna fight, and somehow I keep getting pushed back when I was healthy, spending all this money. I had to sell my car just to stay afloat. And then by the end of it, Ryzen comes out of nowhere to save the day, and they're like, "Hey man, we want you part of our event. Let's do it." And they took care of me, and I obviously was paid to fight, and yeah, I was able to get a great win, and with positive feedback of maybe fighting Kyoji immediately next, or doing the the Grand Prix, or just having a fight before the Grand Prix. So we'll see what happens. But I'm still technically a Brave fighter, so they still have to negotiate some stuff.
So there's nothing definite. I should. Does it look like something will happen in 2025 for you for Ryzen in that case?
I really hope. I mean, the matchmaker was super positive, and a lot of people, especially on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people have been messaging me and giving me a really good feedback. And just because the fight was so exciting, and again, the honor and respect that the MMA community in Japan, dude, it's amazing. And for me, Brave and Ryzen are both doing a flyweight Grand Prix this year. That's amazing. But when it comes to bigger, excuse me, more well-named opponents, Ryzen has that. For me, the only incentive that I have for Brave would be Muhammad Mokaev, and no offense to him, right now I just believe he wants to fight whoever just to get back to the UFC. So it doesn't help me. Kyoji and John Dotson and everyone else that I've also trained with, they would love to fight me because they know I'm a name. Because worse comes to worse, even one of us wins or loses, it's a benefit because we're creating our legacy fighting against really good but also named opponents that other people know. It's incentivizing, it's motivating, it's you just your blood gets pumping going to fight a guy that you're intimidated by or at least know a lot of. So for me, I would rather do the Ryzen Grand Prix. And plus Japan was just dope. I need to explore more Japanese things and eat more Japanese food and definitely acquire a lot more anime stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah, we'll see what happens. But right now that's the hard part about me is or being a fighter is that we don't really have a choice. I have my options, but sadly with business, I can't say yes. I can't immediately go, cool, I want this, because contracts come into play and there's a reason why a manager's there. So as much as I can give my manager advice of this is what I want, we'll see what the promotions, can bring to the table and hopefully, I get to pick respectfully, which one I want more.
Hmm. If you don't mind me asking, did you happen to see Kyoji's fight against Zulu?
I didn't get to see the whole thing. I know now it's on YouTube, on Ryzen's YouTube page. So I definitely need to rewatch that. I did see a lot of highlights. I mean, I kind of expected that type of fight. Zulu hits hard, he's strong, he's explosive, but I knew he was gonna die out on Kyoji. Kyoji is just he walks forward, dude. He's a warrior. He's always gonna keep on going, no matter how tired he is. And he's so naturally strong and explosive. You just don't know what to expect. And I know this from personally training with him where just like Makoto Shinryu, where it's like, ah, cool, I got this round. And then out of nowhere, he just somehow has another level and something in the reserve tank, and you're like, oh, this is a good fight. All right, cool. Plus, dude, KOG hits hard. I remember him hitting me once the very first time I went with him, because he's technically smaller than me, but he's a little tank too. But he hit me and I was like, oh, dude, I know you hit me. I just didn't see it, and I honestly don't remember it. Like he hits really hard. Um, so he's a really fun athlete to go against. I would love to fight him, and I know they would have with Mike Brown again. I've trained with them before. I know they would have a nice game plan against me, but we'll see what happens. Knowing them, they'll probably play it safer and smarter to have the fight in the Grand Prix, instead of maybe making a fight before the whole thing, because I believe the Grand Prix is supposed to be in the summer. But I would love to get 3 or 4 fights this year. That's I've been waiting for that since 2000. The last time I had 3 fights, I believe, was 2017. So for me, I just want to fight as much as possible. I'm 32 years old, and I want to make the most of my career, especially now since I'm healthy.
It seems like this is a year for Grand Prix. Ryzen, Deep announced one. You said Brave. We got PFL sorting out their stuff. This seems to be the year for if you want to be in Grand Prix. This is the time to get into one, man.
And Japan is the one that started it. They were huge on Grand Prix back in the day, so kudos to them, shout out to them. But, in general, just because of how the event went, I just to me it's a lot more exciting. Plus, the two main guys I'd love to fight is John Dotson and Kyoji Horiguchi. I grew up training with these guys, especially John Dotson. He was one of the first real big names I got to train with, where I'm like, dude, you just fought DJ. Like you just fought one of the best in the world and you lost a split decision. You're right there. And to be able to go toe to toe with him, actually I would love to see him versus Kyoji if that hasn't happened yet. Dude, that would be the fastest, most hard hitting fight as a fan just to watch. Those two stylistically are very, very similar. I think Kyoji might have a little bit more of a gas tank and Dotson hits a little bit harder, but the fact is, like, to me as a fan and a fighter, like I'd love to fight both of them and I'd like to see them fight each other one day too. But in general, we'll see what happens next. But if I don't get the opportunity to fight Muhammad Mokaev, it doesn't excite me to just fight someone for money. That's cool, but technically the last two fights that I did lose, I lost to someone that's good for sure. I'm not at all putting, these guys down, but he doesn't have a name. So even if I beat him, there's really no benefit besides +1 on my record. So especially losing to someone that doesn't have a name, it's like, oh wow, that really doesn't help me. So losing or winning against John Dotson or Kyoji, that just helps create a really good legacy to say I fought some of the best.
Actually, you just remind me as well. Oops, sorry. Oops, sorry. You just reminded me with Dodson. Yeah, BKFC has their own tournament this year as well.
Yeah. Well, now they're doing was it 25 man one, like 20 was it? No, 64 man, $25 million tournament.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
And so yeah, if anybody, if any fighters wanted to get into a tournament, God, you got so many to choose from this year. And before we go, Shorty, I just want to give you an opportunity, plug sponsors, plug your gym, plug any social media, all that good stuff.
Man, there's again, if I plug all my sponsors, we'd be doing this episode twice, in one.
Did you have, sorry, did you have
But
an OnlyFans sponsor, by the way? Or
mhm.
okay, good, just want to make sure. That was cool. That was cool. It's always cool to see the OnlyFans on there.
Well, it's funny because most of my fights are in the Middle East, and the Middle East because of Muslim culture. Man, like, and they're fine with it, but I'll get so many messages after they're like, "Brother, you have an OnlyFans?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, it's like, who cares? Like, you can post whatever you want. It just so happens that again, the stereotype of OnlyFans is for models and nudity and this and that. And I'm like, dude, I mean, if you pay me enough, I'll show you what you want. But
Yeah.
I don't have this. It's usually the most I ever get to because it's progress photos most of the time. But dude, I can tell you this. Like, I think I'm an average looking guy. I'm assuming you would think the same about yourself, and other people would think the same about themselves. But man, OnlyFans people, one, there's some very, very intriguing individuals on there that become your followers or fans. But dude, the stuff they request and want to pay for like the weirdest requests, you're like, I'm not gonna do this, but wait, how much? Like, have you ever seen that girl try food? She goes, no, 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 it's not that good. Well, and like that's kind of how like you are on OnlyFans. You're just like, I'm not gonna do it, but how many dollar signs? Like how many zeros? So it is a really funny experience. But shout out to all the guys, Yoka, Borjas Lost, OnlyFans, KHKMMA, part of Brave. I know I'm missing some Resio and Claudia's Jewelry Shop, but man, shout out to Brave for giving me the opportunity, regardless of if I'm able to go back to Ryzen or not. It was such a fun thing. And shout out to Ryzen for taking care of me. That was easily. And again, I fought big promotion before UFC, Bellator, now Ryzen, and Titan FC is this was the most convenient week for fight week that I've ever had. It was one of the most organized, most just seamless fight weeks, especially with the weight cut. They made everything super convenient for me. So thank you so much, especially flying business class. You can't take that back. And man, I'm excited. Hopefully everything comes next, with Ryzen, we grow and have a prosperous 2025, man. But I appreciate a lot of support. But I do want to say we can't be well together. We're a team Shorty because without anyone's support, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. But last thing I do want to say, shout out to my guy Average Joe Art for having the Dragon Ball Z like photo of me on my banner. And had the word warrior, hopefully in Japanese in the middle. I could have said anything, but I'm pretty sure it said warrior in the middle. But I do want to say we're creating a White Ranger, a White Power Ranger logo for my next fight. And it's gonna be again Japanese inspired art. So hopefully, um we get everything together and so we can have that set up for the next Ryzen event. I walked out to Dragon Ball Z. The next one I want to walk out to Power Rangers, another, Japanese inspired show that helped motivate me to fight growing up. So I would love to do that.
Also, actually, you just reminded me as well, with the unfortunate passing of Bellator. You have a favorite Bellator
Oh,
memory?
Favorite Bellator memory.
Or I don't know,
Man.
any experience. I don't know if you cornered
Hmm.
anybody who fought in Bellator or you. I
Well,
know
I
we
mean,
did some stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I've had teammates fight on it. Patchy Mix knocking out Rafian Stats, which was crazy because I love Rafian too, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a crazy fight, and then Patchy does it so easily. Um, Fedor Emelianenko coming back and doing this thing. I got to watch him fight live. In Chicago, Bellator, I do want to give a huge shout out to because I work with military, veterans, called Emerging Veterans and Players (MVP), and Bellator was operated by a lot of veterans. They would give the whole veteran group of 20, 30 people front row seats to the fights. Bellator could have made so much money charging these individuals or charging regular individuals to, pay for these high level seats, but they gave it to the veterans for free. And I was lucky to be a part of it. So they gave me an opportunity to meet a really cool, support group of people. So veterans out there in the States, MVP, Merging Veterans and Players, guys, definitely check it out. And I'm actually going to our meeting tonight. Just it's a nice little support group and hanging out. But yeah, man, it's Bellator did a lot for the community, and they gave a lot of fighters, some really good highlights, like a Eddie Alvarez, like a Michael Chandler, Patchy Mix. You never know where he's gonna go. Patricio Verde, Pitbull. You never know what's gonna happen with him. Sergio Pettis, Juan Archuleta and Kyoji being double champions. So it's a really cool thing. They did fun stuff for Ryzen as well. So shout out to Bellator. They were a nice little beacon for a small time, but it was definitely a fun time. So hopefully we'll see what happens next.
Great, and I'll put your social media stuff on the thing because unfortunately I'm forgetting it right now. But
No worries.
you can see Jose Shorty Torres, Makoto Shinryu, and the rest of the 100 fights that they had at Ryzen 49 at RIZIN.TV. And or probably will get uploaded to YouTube. I'm probably guessing maybe next few weeks. It seems like they're doing
Yeah.
that.
Well, hopefully. I
Yeah.
hope because everyone's like, "Where's your fight?" I'm like, "I don't know. Stop yelling at me."
Well, hopefully YouTube, if not, go to RIZIN.TV. But again, Jose, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on the win. I'm glad that the curse has been broken for interviews and post fight stuff. So hopefully that means that my 2025 I'll have that streak will continue. But
No, fingers
hopefully
crossed.
we'll get to see you again in RIZIN again this year, Grand Prix or not. Hopefully, just fighting in some way for RIZIN.
I appreciate it, bro. Thank you.
No problem.